Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so when most of us think about surgery, we picture the physical stuff, right? The scalpels, the bright lights, the monitors beeping, the pure physical skill of the surgeon. But behind every safe and successful procedure, there's actually this invisible, meticulously calculated chemical symphony happening in the background. Today, we're going to break down the exact science and the frankly obsessive protocols that keep patients safe when they're at their absolute most vulnerable. Let's get right into it.
To really grasp why this precise medical knowledge is literally a matter of life or death, we kind of have to look at a worst-case scenario. Imagine a patient resting peacefully under anesthesia, but then suddenly their end-tidal carbon dioxide spikes and their body temperature just starts soaring completely out of control. This is what's called malignant hyperthermia. It's a rare, inherited disorder of the skeletal muscle metabolism. And the really terrifying reality here, it's triggered by the exact same routine anesthetic gases that are meant to keep the patient safely sedated.
Now, when this rapid temperature spike happens, it is an absolute all-hands-on-deck medical emergency. The only specific antidote is a medication called Dantrolene sodium. It's a highly specific skeletal muscle relaxant. And because malignant hyperthermia is just so incredibly dangerous and unpredictable, every single operating room is required to have a dedicated cart completely stocked with this stuff and ready to go at a moment's notice, just for the specific emergency.
That high-stakes emergency is the perfect example of why foundational knowledge in the OR is absolutely non-negotiable. So, here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll look at the science of medication. Second, strict operating room protocols. Third, essential surgical drugs. And finally, the phases of anesthesia.
All right, Section 1, the science of medication, chemicals and tissue. Because before a drug can save a life or numb a nerve, we really have to understand exactly how those chemicals interact with human biology.
The crucial thing here is distinguishing between two incredibly important but totally distinct concepts. First up, we have pharmacodynamics. Think of this as what the drug does to the body. This involves the biochemical processes, the actual mechanism of action, and how the drug binds to receptors to create a response. On the flip side, we have pharmacokinetics, and this is what the body does to the drug. So this is all about the movement and the modification of that medication once it's actually inside you.
Looking a little closer at pharmacokinetics, there's a biological journey a medication goes through, broken down into 4 stages. First is absorption. That's where the drug enters your circulation. Maybe it's inhaled through the lungs or injected directly into a vein. Second is distribution, which is when your bloodstream acts like a highway, carrying it to various tissues. Third is metabolism, where the drug gets broken down. That process is largely handled by your liver. And finally, excretion, where the body basically takes out the trash and eliminates the chemical, typically routing it through the kidneys and out into your urine.
And all 4 of those steps have to be perfectly balanced, because medicine basically operates in a strict Goldilocks zone. If a drug level is too low, it's subtherapeutic. That just means it doesn't reach the threshold to actually do anything. If it goes too high, well, it hits a toxic effect, which can cause severe adverse reactions. Think hepatotoxicity, which is a rapid deterioration of liver function. Definitely not what you want. But right there in the middle, that's the green zone, the therapeutic window. That is exactly where the drug safely reaches its peak effect before its action eventually wears off.
Moving on to Section 2, strict operating room protocols, or preventing human error. Because let's be real, knowing all that science means absolutely nothing if the wrong chemical is handed to the surgeon.
In the operating room, human error is fought back by this invisible, almost obsessive safety net known as the 6 rights of medication. Literally, every single time a drug is given, the surgical team has to verify 6 things: the right patient, the right medication, the right dose, the right time, the right route, and finally, they have to ensure the right documentation. Missing even one of these steps, that can lead to catastrophic, completely life-altering mistakes.
So how do they actually enforce those 6 rights? Well, the team performs what we can call the sterile transfer dance. When a medication moves from the circulating nurse to the surgical tech in the sterile field, it's meticulously choreographed. First, they establish eye contact. Second, they verbally agree on exactly what the medication is. Third, the circulator holds up the vial so the tech can clearly see it and reads out loud the name, the strength, and the expiration date. And finally, the absolute second the tech draws that fluid into a syringe, it has to be labeled immediately. Why the rush? Because a lot of vital medications look exactly the same as plain sterile water or saline. You just can't risk mixing them up.
There's also a very specific, strictly by-the-book rule that governs this whole transfer. The circulator wipes the top of the vial with alcohol, and then the tech draws the medication out using a large hypodermic needle. Here is the golden rule. You must never, ever remove the rubber stopper from a vial and just pour the liquid out. Even if some people are tempted to cut corners in the real world, the absolute gold standard for preventing contamination is keeping that vial completely sealed during the entire transfer. No exceptions.
All right, Section 3, Essential Surgical Drugs, the chemical tools. Let's take a look at the actual arsenal that surgeons and anesthesiologists use to control the total chaos of human anatomy.
The surgical arsenal is absolutely massive, but it's highly categorized. For instance, if you're in an OB/GYN setting, a drug like oxytocin, also known as Pitocin, is incredibly vital. It actually stimulates uterine contractions to induce labor, and it helps control severe hemorrhage after delivery. Then you've got hemostatic agents, which are used to physically or chemically stop bleeding. This includes tools like bone wax or topical epinephrine, which works as a vasoconstrictor to clamp down on blood vessels. Or consider diuretics like Lasix. These pull excess fluid out of the body through your urine. That's super important if you need to reduce fluid overload or even decrease pressure inside the skull during neurosurgery.
Now, when you start combining these drugs, we typically see two main interactions: synergism and antagonism. Think of synergism as just incredible teamwork. Taking two drugs together produces a significantly stronger effect than either one could achieve on its own. A classic example in surgery is combining certain steroids with antibiotics to pack a bigger punch. Antagonism, on the other hand, is the exact opposite. This is when one drug actually inhibits or blocks the effects of another. You wouldn't normally prescribe this for daily use, obviously, but in the OR, antagonism is a total lifesaver when you need an immediate antidote to reverse a severe allergic reaction or an overdose.
Bringing us to Section 4, the phases of anesthesia, the chronological timeline. This is where all that underlying pharmacokinetics, the strict sterile protocols, and the massive chemical arsenal all come together to perform what is essentially a modern medical miracle. You see, general anesthesia isn't just putting someone to sleep. It's actually a carefully controlled chronological timeline made up of 4 distinct phases. First is induction. This happens preoperatively. It's when the patient loses consciousness and critical airway control is established. Second is maintenance. This spans the actual surgery itself. The state of anesthesia is actively maintained and vital signs are continuously, obsessively monitored. Third is emergence. This happens postoperatively as the anesthetic agents are finally discontinued and the patient slowly regains consciousness. And finally, recovery, where the patient is transferred to the post-anesthesia care unit, often called the PACU, for ongoing monitoring until they are totally stable.
So, the really crucial point to take away from this explainer is that modern surgery is equal parts physical skill and absolute chemical mastery. From ensuring a drug stays right in that safe therapeutic window, to the incredibly strict verbal dance of a sterile transfer, to those 4 meticulously monitored phases of general anesthesia, it's an environment where total perfection is literally the only acceptable standard. So, next time you or loved one goes under the knife, will you think about the invisible, meticulously calculated chemical symphony that's actively keeping you safe? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep asking the big questions.